there's a small conservative group of doctors that have really been at the forefront of pushing for abortion restrictions and bans on gender-affirming care across the country. Now, thanks to a trove of their documents that they accidentally left accessible to the public, we know more now about their strategy, their agenda, and how they're trying to recruit more conservatives. Now, this group is called the American College of Pediatricians, and it sounds super official and legit, but really, it has this unassuming name that says it's reputable. Not the case. They have a clear conservative agenda influenced by religious beliefs. So we know this from the Washington Post. For years, the group has presented statistics and talking points to state legislators, public school officials, and the American public as settled science, while internal documents emphasize how religion and morality influence its positions. Meeting minutes from 2021 describe how the organization worked with religious groups to affect the idea makers through the high courts, professional literature, and legislatures. It promotes conversion therapy, a discredited practice intended to change the sexual orientation or gender identity of LGBTQ people that most medical societies warn can result in harm. Pediatric experts deemed a June 2022 report crafted by the group that undergirds a new Florida policy banning trans care for Medicaid recipients as unscientific. And unfortunately, they've been pretty successful in what they've been doing. The organization has successfully lobbied since 2021 for laws in more than a half a dozen states that ban gender-affirming care for transgender youth, with its representatives testifying before state legislatures against the guidelines recommended by mainstream medical groups, according to its records. It gained further national prominence this year as one of the plaintiffs in the federal lawsuit to limit access to mifepristone. Arkansas first enacted such a law in 2021 after Michelle Cretella, then executive director of the American College of Pediatricians, described such care as experimental and dangerous to legislators. A federal appeals court temporarily blocked it. But versions of the law have since been passed. At least 20 other state legislatures have pushed them through. And it's not just trans people who are targeted. Internal records from 2010 show how the group tied homosexuality to health risks, even death, in a letter campaign to educators, citing a 1991 study to demonstrate that for each year adolescents delay self-labeling as gay, the risk of suicide decreases by 20%. The 2010 letter from the American College of Pediatricians to 14,800 public school superintendents urged school officials not to affirm any student expressing homosexuality. It directed them to a website operated by the group that pushed sexual reorientation therapy for those with unwanted homosexual attractions. Now, more recent reputable research indicates that suicide risk actually rises with therapy directed at changing one's sexual orientation. And other major medical groups are highly skeptical of their claim, including the similarly named American Academy of Pediatrics. Yeah. Now, the Academy, which said more than 95% of its members are physicians, has pointed to strong consensus among the most prominent medical organizations worldwide that evidence-based gender-affirming care for trans children and adolescents is medically necessary and appropriate. That definitely seems to be a consensus of those who are actually informed and knowledgeable and who should be speaking on the subject. But for some reason, we still have individuals out here like the aforementioned group that are looking to get people hurt.
I think the most important thing to understand, first and foremost, when it comes to gender affirming care for trans youth, it's that quite literally, it is just about making sure that children go through whatever puberty they are the most comfortable with at the normal puberty age. And it quite literally is just that. Anybody that wants to tell you that, like, in fearmonger about, oh my goodness, it's this big, scary, terrifying thing, it's so new and experimental. It's actually not. We know what testosterone does. We know what estrogen does. Like, quite literally, it is what is going to drive your puberty. It's gonna be one or the other, right? And so fundamentally, it's all just about making sure that kids go through the puberty that they are the most comfortable with. And any scary long-term side effects are literally the same scary long-term side effects that anybody would get from either puberty, right? Whether it be with testosterone or estrogen. And we kind of just know the risks of going through testosterone puberty, going through estrogen puberty. And so the issue is when you have these people that, fearmonger and try and make it seem like this super experimental thing that there's, we couldn't possibly know any information about, despite the fact that we've literally been doing this for decades, despite the fact that, like, we kind of understand how biology works, at least, like testosterone and estrogen work for the most part. We kind of have that down a little bit, in terms of like where the scientific community is, where the medical community is. They've all come to pretty solid conclusions about what is actually beneficial. And then of course they're the same types of people that are pushing conversion therapy, which I think the Washington Post article sort of soft pedaled a little bit there, because it's not just that conversion therapy can be harmful, it's that conversion therapy realistically is just torture. That's what it is. They torture people into trying to get them to stop being gay or trans. And that, I think, is evil, actually. And I think anybody that supports it is evil. So I don't know, bold take of me, I guess, right there, to say it's wrong to torture people into trying to get them to change their sexuality. But like that really, I think, speaks to like the shamelessness of the political right today, where they're pushing a lot of this same old like homophobia, transphobia. They're quite literally bringing back the satanic panic that they did in the 90s. I mean, these right wingers, they're like 3 seconds away from taking away kids' Pokemon cards and telling them that they're satanic, right? Like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a bunch of conservatives doing that right now, talking about like, oh my goodness, Pokemon is gonna trans your gender. And it's ridiculous and it's vile. And it is unfortunately what is fueling a lot of like terroristic threats across the country. I mean, quite literally, there are tons of organizations that have got bomb threats from people who are inspired by these like right-wing freaks that keep trying to fearmonger about trans healthcare. They keep trying to equate it to like child grooming and stuff like that. And then they go tell like their ridiculous base all of these things. And then their ridiculous base, like, they start, calling in bomb threats to Children's Hospital, calling in bomb threats to schools for letting kids just play sports, right? And then they call in threats to like Target and stuff like this. And so fundamentally, it's more than just like specifically trans people in this instance. Obviously, trans people are like the main target, but ultimately, this is about the political right trying to strip people of bodily autonomy, right? It's trying to strip women of bodily autonomy. It's trying to strip anybody with uterus of bodily autonomy. It's trying to strip children of their bodily autonomy, because fundamentally, the political right thinks that women and children should be nothing other than property for cishet white men. And like, that is it. That is at the core of this. And so, fundamentally, it is this incredibly dangerous ideology that is unfortunately fueling a ridiculous amount of violence across the country. And if you're a cisgender person and you think this won't affect you, I hate to break it to you, but there's a whole group of people called transvestigators that are dedicated to finding trans people just to harass them. And lo and behold, they're really bad at identifying who is trans just by looking at them. And they also target a lot of cis people. So if you are a cis woman that has any trait that any right-winger considers to be too masculine, well, you might find yourself in a bathroom where they're kicking down the stall and dragging you out violently, calling the police on you, because that is what the Republicans fundamentally want from all of these bills. And that is exactly what institutions like this, which put out fear mongering about HRT for trans youth, are really trying to instigate.
Thank you so much, Trey.
On that transvestigator note, I think it was just this week, there was like a 9-year-old girl in Oklahoma, I think, in like a foot race or something benign like that, who won. And then these lunatic right-wing people like cornered her and her parents, claiming that the girl was transgender, obviously, and trying to make her parents prove it right there in front of everybody. A 9-year-old. So this isn't just fear mongering, like they're doing this right now. I do hope that Benny's right about Satan making a comeback, though. I've been waiting on that for years. Praise the dark Lord. But also, this group of doctors, they're really shifty. They're trying to hide the ball. You could tell with that name, American College of Pediatricians. Normally, with a group like this, their name is something like Patriotic Pediatricians for Freedom and Jesus or whatever. And you see a name like that and you're like, okay, I can stop listening now. But they've got a whole other strategy. So they know what they're doing. And I think it's because they're trying to grab an outsized portion of influence and power that they haven't really earned, right? It's indicative of a larger thing that goes on in this country, in our politics sometimes. Like the actual group of politicians, the American organization of pediatricians or whatever it is, they have like 67,000 members. This group has 700, right? So it's like 1%, which is the type of thing I tell myself to help myself sleep at night. 700 is still too many doctors to feel this way, but they shouldn't have even the amount of power and influence that they do, but they use these underhanded tactics to grab them. But this reminds me of like a revelation I think that most adults have at some point in their adulthood, which is like, oh, some doctors are dumb or bad or crazy. Like you're kind of raised to like trust doctors and believe like doctors always know or whatever. Nope. Some of them ain't worth a damn, just like any other profession. So, there's at least 700 of them in this particular industry, and they've coalesced in this awful, awful group. So, absolutely. Boo them.
Very much so. And they're also trying to expand, of course, and we're seeing their members being featured on tons of right-wing media outlets. And so definitely keep your eyes peeled because these people need to peace out, and hopefully that comes sooner than later.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.